Well, the question is, can you be a great team with a middle-of-the-road, at best, left tackle? And Andre Dillard is far from middle of the road right now. I think a lot of people wishes he was middle of the road.
That's hard to do. You either need to be able to have a guy like that or have a dynamic quarterback to get out of situations sometimes.
Right.
And to that point, look at the Dolphins. Their offensive line is not stellar. I'd say middle of the road.
Yep.
And they kind of scheme around that. Look what they did against the Broncos. They get the ball out quickly. They have playmakers who can make stuff in space, so kind of alleviates the concern to push the play down the field unnecessarily. But it has to be a special situation for the offense, right?
Sure.
Yes, it
Great
does.
point.
And that's the problem the Titans run into now, is that they would have to go through completely schematical, total makeover on offense to win with the personnel it has on the offensive line right now. So then the question becomes, do you change the personnel? And we'll get to that coming up. But wanted to hear first of what Andre Dillard had to say post-game in the locker room. I don't love the self-awareness, bringing up the fact that Myles Garrett is giving you pointers after this loss and the way you played specifically. This was Andre Dillard talking with Buck Rising post-game, who got this audio, put it on Twitter.
Yeah, it's never an easy thing. You know, you got a lot of good players around the league, and you know this team has had some really good guys on there. But you know, third and long, they're going to be coming and bringing the pressures, and you know we just got to do better as a unit. I got to do better as an individual, and to sit down those pressures and those defenders.
Obviously, Myles Garrett, one of the better players in the league. What was happening there as far as your matchups with him?
I think I just need to do better with my hands and my sets and all that stuff. I talked to him after the game, and he told me his inputs, because I'm just trying to get better, and so he kind of told me what he saw, what he liked about my game, and what I could have done differently. So.
Do you appreciate that kind of constructive criticism?
I definitely do, yeah, especially from a player as good as him, and it's cool to see it from his perspective.
For you, after a performance like that, how do you process it, how you work through it, and then spin it forward to the next game?
When you go through stuff like that, all you can do is just keep playing the next play and don't let your head hang, because then you'll just spiral and it'll get out of control. But what you do from that is you just learn from it. You watch the film, you study it, take the constructive criticism, and you just move forward, and that's all you can do.
So that was Buck Rising and Teron Davenport. Credit to Teron as well for being in that conversation with Andre Dillard post-game yesterday, and Buck tweeting that out at Buck Rising on Twitter. What's y'all's reaction when you hear that?
Well, when he said specifically, and I'll ask you this, Ramon, getting critiques from a guy like Myles Garrett, I know that probably happens off the field sometimes with players. And he seemed to not be, hesitant on sharing that information. Then Buck followed up with it, obviously, and he, gave him an answer. So that's a different situation. I wanted to ask you about when he said things that he was told, what could you work on? Better with my hands, getting set. Isn't that something we talked about earlier on this season, getting set and the way that he kind of operates as a left tackle specifically, and that's something that he needed to probably work on. It doesn't seem like that's happened. That's why I wanted to ask you about that, because that stood out to me.
That is 100% fact. Him getting set is when he was signed here. I told you, looked at the tape and said he oozes to a stop is what happens with him. It's held true. I figured there'll be something that he correct and try to fix down the line, and it has yet to correct itself, either in practice, in camp, or preseason and regular season. Now it's yet to stop happening. I'll say this too. In a small defense of him, guys do talk after the game about, hey, man, that move was cool. That move was this or that. But I'll say this too. You learn and know all this stuff on film. Mm-hmm. I almost felt like Myles Garrett sunned him in a sense. It's like, hey, man, this is how I beat you, and this is what you need to do to get better. I will say this. I've had conversation with other guys about some stuff that I've done or how they rush and stuff like that. That never hits the media, ever. Because as a pro, you always watch the film. You know what your deficiencies are. I don't need you to tell me what I did wrong. And it was, I get it. It was admirable, but it was embarrassing to actually put that out there. You're not going to whoop my behind and tell me how you beat my behind too. My tape is going to tell me that when I review that tape right there. That was, to me, it was kind of bad to put that out there as a pro. Is what I was saying. I would never tell the media, hey, somebody told me how they kicked my ass today, y'all, and I'm going to go back and watch it and try to get better from it. Now, a lot of people are saying, it's a stand-up thing to do. No, it's not really, because as a pro, the tape never lies. The tape never defies you. The tape is always going to be truthful. The tape will forever tell yourself. Y'all know I always tell anybody that I work with as far as sports, work on your deficiencies, because that's how you're going to last in this league. Everybody know your strength. Everybody know Myles Garrett can bend. Everybody know Myles Garrett can run. He's strong as an ox. But I tell you this, you minimize your weaknesses. Therefore, nobody can ever attack them. Andre Dillard's weakness is what, y'all, in the room together? He doesn't stop on bull rushes at all. So what would I do? I would work on that. And it was going to suck in the beginning as a pro. But guess what you do? I got to work on this in camp. I got to work on this in practice. I got to work on this in live sessions when we have against the Minnesota Vikings. And if we hadn't corrected those things, then what the heck are we doing? That was an embarrassing response. Is it something courageous to say to people in the masses? Yes, we all know that, though. There's no reason for you to tell us that Myles Garrett gave you tips on what you got going on. And I look at that situation, and now I feel like he's going to be in a position of just chasing, forever chasing. Because everything that he said that Myles Garrett told him, there's going to be somebody on the Cincinnati Bengals, Trey Hendrickson. Hey, Myles, what did you tell him, man? I'm texting Myles Garrett, like, Myles, what you do against him? I'm going to watch that tape first and foremost, and then, Myles, what did you do against him? Oh, man, he probably ain't going to ever stop on the bull rush. And the moment he does is probably when they're going to pull and rip him to get to the quarterback again. You work on your deficiencies so that people can't expose those, because those are the reasons you get fired.
Can I put one more thing out here? The Tape Farm, because I do want to give the other side of this, and this is somebody in the chat. The Tape Farm on the F&M Bank chat said, Dillard's comments were mature and accountable. If the media attacks him for something that players talk about all the time, then you all are ever going to get from these players is those cliche answers. So that, what response?
Absolutely not. Again, nobody has to tell you got your ass kicked. Everybody knows that.
And we saw it.
And we saw it. Don't tell me about you. Myles sunned him. He became dad yesterday. He became his mentor. He became papa, head of the household. He get the biggest piece of chicken in the restaurant now. That's what happened in those situations. You can say what you want to about those types of comments, mature and accountable. No, your job is to do it. You don't absolutely get a pass because you told somebody we got smacked around today. That's not how this works, especially now. It'd be fine if this was a one-off. Y'all would accept that, would you not, man, Myles? I went up against a good opponent today. He got me.
Sure.
That's if you had a few wins in front of you. It ain't been many wins that Dillard has kind of had. So you can't announce that to the world when the world already knows that.
Regardless of how mature it is, it's insecure to put that out there and say, hey, this guy that just beat me at what I do the entire week is telling me how I can get better. That comes from a massive place of insecurity, a massive place, and wanting the approval. And it's almost like he wants a little bit of grace from the fan base. That's the way it comes across to me. Like, well, he did tell me, and I always want to get better. Yeah, you should. We just watched you get beat for an entire game.
And the game before that and the forward that, too.
It's mature if you're giving us new information that comes from a position of strength. This was neither. This was not new information. We saw exactly what happened. You got beat. Your hands aren't quick enough. You're getting beat on bull rushes. And, heck, the end of the first half. And I'll give Dillard this, guys. Leaving Andre Dillard one-on-one, I tweeted it yesterday. Leaving Andre Dillard one-on-one with 13 seconds left in the second quarter in a situation where you absolutely cannot take a sack, that is not a Andre Dillard problem. That's a Tim Kelly and Mike Vrabel problem. You cannot leave him one-on-one in a position where – clockwise, you cannot take a sack.
But you said no. You said no. I asked you this question in the break.
You
said
you can't allow that. You got to get your skill players out. I know where you're coming from on that, and you understand the risk. But the risk is we pay you to block this man, and at some point you have to hold up. And I think that's why you send them out. If we're a tight red zone, we're trying to score before the half. Not saying you're wrong. This is your opinion on it. Mine is you got to send everybody out. That's an empty protection. Help ain't on the way.
I don't care. Because then the goal, Ramon, if the goal is to get 7, then you're right. Titans just needed 3 points. They just needed something. Mike Vrabel did explain post-game why Andre Dillard was left one-on-one on that. This is what he had to say after the game about that first half scenario there.
Yeah, I mean, we consider doubling them a lot. You're trying to score from the 12-yard line. It's hard if you don't get guys out down there in the red zone because of the space. So that's a product of trying to score and hope that the protection hangs up. You keep guys in, and then now you're running a lot of bodies out there in coverage. So we like the call, just need to execute it better, and which I'm sure we will.
Not good enough for me, guys. I'm sorry. It's not. Talk about executing it better. It's not going to be executed. You know that you got no shot with Andre Dillard one-on-one against Myles Garrett. When you put an 8-year-old at the steering wheel of the car and your 8-year-old crashes the car, it's not the 8-year-old's fault. It's the person who said, drive, kid.
I push back on that one. And I know I love the route you're going where you're supposed to protect your weaknesses, but in certain situations, you're not allowed to protect your weaknesses. Those 5-on-5 blocks mean a lot. Winning man to a man means a lot. If it's that, I think you said, that ball he got to him in 2.5 seconds. That ain't an offensive, that isn't an offensive scheme problem. That's a man to a man problem right there when it boils down to you not holding up. That right there was, that was a bad play. And I feel like everybody in the building was watching that one. I was too. Just like, oh, well, we'll see if he holds up on third down. There's no timeouts left. That was a bad day at the office. And, again, you can say those types of things, but Myles Garrett, to me, slapped him in the face with how he went about explaining to him what I did to you. Now, those conversations happen.
I don't know if he thought he was going to go and say that, though.
No, it ain't on Myles. It ain't on Myles Garrett.
I mean,
he didn't do anything wrong yesterday.
No. Y'all, I'm telling you, and I don't want to make it seem like I was king of the hill when I played, but there's a certain mentality you have to have about being a pro, about having a sense of pride. And this is why I always kind of explain to kids, this is why I always kind of explain to young pros, if there's ever an opportunity, y'all have heard me say this, of me versus you, I'm going to step on your neck every single time. Mm-hmm. And that starts mentally. That starts right before the play happens. Because if you ever give anybody any signs of hope against you, they'll do these things. And then after the game, they'll come up to you and say, hey, man, this is how I beat you. Y'all tell me if that's respect or not. Like, legitimately sit back to yourself and tell me if that's respect or not. That's like, we heard those, a-hole stories that Michael Jordan have, right? Or Kobe Bryant have. To where man, I don't care if you was a first rounder. I'm going to dog you out every single time. Because if I got an opportunity to dog you and belittle you in the spirit of competition, I'm going to do it. And then afterwards, we can be cool.
Sure.
But it's the fact that I own you now.
He's opened himself up to, you think Sam Hubbard in the first quarter on Sunday is not saying, hey, what Myles tell you?
Yes.
I disagree. I think you should actually do this.
Yes.
You've opened yourself up to, if Ramon, if you heard that, say you were talking to a defensive guy who did nothing against you all week, said, hey, this is what I think you should do. You know that the next week, one of your buddies on offensive line, you're telling him exactly what you said.
Yep.
Saying, hey, this is what I told him. Here, look, y'all want to beat this guy?
Yep.
This is what I told him to do. So you should tell him the opposite when you get in the field of play.
Yep.
When you start the game.
Okay, so we can say all these conversations, but he's going to be the left tackle on Sunday. So,
I don't know about that.
At this point,
I think he could very well still be the left tackle on Sunday. So if that's the case, what do you do? What do you say to him this week? What does he have to do to be mentally right to be ready for this game and not have the same performance as he just did that is obviously taking, an hour of the show to discuss, and rightfully so.
What I would tell him is dig your feet in and start the run game a little bit better. And everybody knew it. Whenever it comes down times for you to drop back, Ryan Tannehill to drop back this offense to throw the ball down the field, there's a liability there. You better run the ball and do it well. That way they can't guess that it's a running play. That way they don't understand, you have them on tilt when it comes down to what are they going to do offensively. There wasn't much play action in this game because of why, y'all? You didn't establish a run.
They couldn't get the run going. Yeah.
And I'm looking at this defense at the line of scrimmage on Sunday, and they are digging in, screaming off the edge. You tell him this week, hey, you need to establish a run game because that's the only way we're going to get the passing game going.